I had eating disorders for a good portion of my life, about 12 years. Anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorder. They just ruled me for a long portion of my life. They ruled me. I think that's the best way of articulating it. I've been eating disorder free for years at this point. And when I say eating disorder free, I mean, I consider myself recovered. This is kind of a controversial statement in the eating disorder community. They really like to use the word like recovery. Like we're always in recovery from an eating disorder. We're never recovered. We're always in recovery because it's something we always have to maintain and work on. And I find that language so frustrating, unhelpful, unmotivating. It kind of makes me angry. If you're struggling with an eating disorder, and you hear, oh, you're going to always have to be working on this for the rest of your life, that seems like I felt hopeless when people were using that kind of language. So I feel it is important, because it is true, to let you guys know that I'm recovered. I'm hopeful that that's in some ways heartening to you and gives you some sense of hope if you're struggling right now, that you can be recovered. And what I mean by recovered is that I have not binged, purged, restricted, counted a calorie, exercised in a disordered way, just recovered. And it feels great. And I don't think about it. I don't think about food at all. I completely eat whatever I want, whenever I want, no food rules. It's really, I can't believe it. And I'm so grateful for it. And I've got some tools and some strategies that worked for me that I would like to share with you guys today. I did a college tour as the book was, as my book, I'm Glad My Mom Died, was coming out. And at a lot of these colleges, young women and men would ask me questions, more often than not women, but definitely men as well, would ask me questions about eating disorders and what steps I took to kind of recover from one. And there was clearly a lot of curiosity and interest from people who I suspect were struggling themselves. I just have really wanted to have all of the things that worked for me, all the strategies and tools, all the tools in the toolkit. I've wanted to have them all in one space for you guys, so that you can just kind of just have it all in one place. And just to be super clear, of course, obviously, clearly, I'm not a therapist. I have no degree of any kind. I did not go to college, and just vaguely went to high school because I was doing high school on set. So the only authority that I have to speak on this is that I'm a person who struggled for a long time in a really, really significant way. And I no longer struggle with this, and I'm free of it. So that to me, I hope lends some authority. But also one other little caveat is that of the things that I'm saying, it's everything in terms of healing, recovery, I consider to be extremely customizable and extremely subjective. So if it's not working for you, if something doesn't resonate when you hear, just leave it, right? Only pay attention to the stuff that seems like it's going to work for you. You know you best. And I'm genuinely hoping for your freedom from this. I really, really hope for your success. The first piece of advice that I feel like most everybody says when it comes to recovering from an eating disorder is finding a good therapist. And it's kind of like stock advice at this point. You just know you're going to hear it. I totally get that. I think it's important, but also therapy's fucking expensive. I get it, right? It's like, it's crazy. So I'm going to give a list of tips that don't require a therapist. I certainly hope you are able to have one at some point. But I also get if you aren't able to afford one, or maybe you try talking to a few and you don't find a personality match, and that's fine too. So DBT is the kind of therapy that worked for me with the eating disorder specifically. In a quick little brief nutshell, my understanding of DBT is there are 4 modules. It's distress tolerance, emotion regulation, interpersonal effectiveness, and mindfulness. And the whole premise of the therapy is that you learn skills within each of these 4 modules to help you tolerate the urges that come with your addiction, to just kind of increase the amount of time that happens between when you have that urge and you act on that urge. Because in that little window of time, that's the window that you can really build upon and strengthen until, hopefully the urges just get smaller and smaller, the less that you act on them and till the issue goes away. So my first kind of tool in the toolkit, if you will, is look up DBT videos online for eating disorders and see what insight, wisdom you can kind of glean from those. The second tool that I want to share with you is to tell a few trusted people, few trusted friends, and be as discerning as you can with the people that you tell. All right? You got to tell people that want you to win, not people that need you to stay small so that they can feel better about themselves. I told a couple people when I was struggling, and I'm really grateful that I told certain people, and I kind of wish I hadn't told others, because as I was making strides in my recovery, as I was gaining confidence in my recovery and getting some successes under my belt, and, inevitably the people that I told would kind of ask how it was going, and if I shared that things were going well, I could see almost like their face twitch. So just, I hope that you're discerning in the people that you choose to share this information with. Tell also people that don't pity you, right? You want compassion, not pity. If somebody pities you, they're looking down on you. They're seeing themselves as above you. It feels nasty. You can feel when somebody's pitying you and it feels bad. For me, if I could feel somebody pitying me, it made me feel worse about myself. I did not want to be pitied. I wanted compassion and I wanted support, not fucking pity. So tell people that support you, that are compassionate, and that believe in you, believe that you can do it, believe that you can recover. I think having people around you who really believe in you is crucial. So use discernment with who you tell, but try to tell a few people, because it'll just relieve a lot of that shame instantly. That's what happened for me. I told a couple people and it was just like instantly freeing. It was like, oh my God, it's not this secret anymore. It's not this shameful thing. Just having some people know about it feels like I can now explore it more thoroughly. Third tip that I have here, third thing that really helped me, was throwing out my scale. And this was very difficult. I had tried multiple times to throw it out, and then I'd just go out the next day and buy a new one. I actually talk about this in my book, so I won't dwell on it in case you've read it to not bore you. But I decided, as a birthday present to myself, I'm going to throw away this scale. If I tell myself, look, this is something I'm doing for myself, this is the present I'm giving to myself for my birthday, I can maybe not go out and buy it again the next day this time. And it happened. It was meaningful enough to me that I did not go out and buy another scale. I have not bought another scale since then. I know it's a difficult action in terms of everything that I just said, where the impulse is going to be there to go out and buy a new one. And I'm assuming if you're somebody struggling with an eating disorder, you're probably like I was, and defining yourself by that number and, trying to control that number. It's just, it just fuels the obsession, the compulsions so much that if you are able to throw it out by any means, however you've got to do it, whatever you've got to tell yourself to throw it out. For me, it was, I need it to be meaningful, and that'll get me to throw it out permanently. Figure out what language is going to work for you and what messaging is going to work for you, and then throw out the fucking scale. Okay. Cannot recommend that enough. There will probably be anxiety. There was certainly anxiety for me of if I don't know the number, what's going to happen? You're going to be fine, hun. You are going to be so much better than fine by not cycling and obsessing about this thing. Just, you've got better things to think about. God, if there's one thing I could tell my younger self, it's quit wasting your time. You've got so much better things to think about. You are wasting your time with this eating disorder. And I hope you hear the truth in that if you're struggling currently. You have better things to think about. I don't care where you're from, what you do. You have better things to think about than this eating disorder. So the sooner you can kick this thing, the better. Throw out that scale. The fourth thing that really helped me is identifying the eating disorder voice. This was a very, very tricky piece of recovery to me, and yet profoundly impactful once I kind of started getting the hang of it. So when I was in the throes of my eating disorder, I didn't know how to identify my eating disorder voice. When my therapist said, hey, he explained kind of the eating disorder voice and that we were going to start working on it, on identifying it, I was just confused. I thought, eating disorder voice? What do you mean? I've got a separate voice in my head for my own voice? Like, that sounds weird. What's happening? What's going on? I was just confused. What I came to later realize was that the eating disorder voice was really the main voice, the dominant voice in my life. It was the thing that was guiding really most of my actions. So much of my life was revolved around my eating disorder. Obviously, what I ate or didn't eat, but what I wore, what I said, who I was with, I would avoid social settings where I'd have to eat because it would be too stressful. Like, so much of my life was catered to this eating disorder voice, the voice telling me to not eat or to throw up what I ate or to go run 13 miles, whatever that voice was telling me, that thing reigned supreme. That thing was in charge. And my actual voice, my actual intuition had really been quite silenced by that eating disorder voice. And so what my therapist helped me do was to identify my own voice. He kind of reverse engineered it. He had me identify my own voice that was telling me logical, sensible, supportive information. Maybe let's try eating breakfast today. Hey, you know what? Let's sit with this really uncomfortable feeling that we're having after eating and not throw up. Let's not purge. Let's try to not purge. Can we do that? Like, he had me kind of identify that voice and strengthen that voice. Identifying the eating disorder voice was vital because then once I was able to amplify my own voice and identify the eating disorder voice, I could have a dialogue with it. And I could say, hey, I hear you, eating disorder voice, but you're no longer needed. This is a sub tool in the toolkit. I'm on 4, so this is like 4B, right? Recognizing the value that your eating disorder had in your life. When my therapist first told me, like, how does your eating disorder help you? I was confused. I looked at him like, what? I'm here to get over my eating disorder. What do you mean help me? It's ruining my life. Like, what are you talking about? Why am I talking about how an eating disorder helps me? And he goes, well, it served a purpose for a long time. We do what helps us most. Or, so I'm paraphrasing here, but he was all therapist and smart about it and like pushed his glasses on his face a little more. And he was great. But he was like, what we're doing in our lives makes sense. So the fact that you had an eating disorder for so long, it was probably a survival, a coping mechanism, something that you needed to help you in certain ways. And now you just no longer need it. Now you've got better tools in your toolkit. Now you've got better resources. But it's important that we recognize the value that our eating disorder served in our life so that we can recognize the value that we now find in other things that we're using to replace our eating disorder. This was kind of mind-blowing and as I mentioned, confusing, but really, really, really key for me as well. Identifying the value that my eating disorder brought me. So it brought me the illusion of control. It was a way to numb out overwhelming emotions. It was a way to tolerate situations that I felt completely powerless in. And recognizing that value helped me to find a sense of control, a sense of power in other healthier ways. And then the last tool in the toolkit that I'm going to share with you that really worked for me is living a values-based life. There was an exercise, a very very just basic elementary exercise that my therapist had me do, which was to identify my values. He gave me like a packet that said a list of 300 values or something like that. And then I was supposed to categorize them into the ones that did not appeal to me, the ones that appealed to me, and the ones that really appealed to me. And he told me to make sure that the values that I was selecting were not aspirational values. It's not like, oh, I'd like to be generous, so I'm gonna, they're not goals, right? They're values. So it's what's actually really, really important to you in your life. And he encouraged me to think deeply about it, to not rush, to take my time, I think it was a full week that I took. I sorted these things into piles. I took it so seriously, you guys. It was like I was in a beautiful mind, like doing the equation on the chalkboard, but it was just like a fucking values exercise. No, it was very fun and incredibly helpful. But I did take it very seriously, and I came up with kind of 5 core values that I then took to him. And I didn't recognize how impactful this exercise was going to be, but my God, have I recognized it in the time since. Having values, knowing what my values are, knowing what really, really matters to me, and also no judgment. I really encourage no judgment if you're doing a values exercise for yourself. You might care about things that you don't know anybody in your circle to care about. We're wired different ways, right? And just embrace those parts, embrace what you care about. It's fine. You're fine. Accept yourself, even if nobody else does, and you're going to be golden. I promise. But accepting my values and accepting what really mattered to me and recognizing, I had never really, I don't know, I'd considered myself a thoughtful person. I thought about a lot in my life, a lot. I can't fucking stop thinking. That's kind of the problem, right? But for some reason, lasering in on these values and going, oh, that is what's most important to me, was life-changing. It just kind of clarified the lens with which I viewed the world and how I made decisions and what I chose to do and not do. It was truly transformative, truly life-changing. You can literally just look up like a simple values exercise on Google. It'll probably send you 10 different options. And I hope you find something that really suits you, and I hope you really take your time with figuring out what your values are. I feel such a connection to those of you who approach me about my book and share that you are struggling yourselves with an eating disorder, and who ask me for tips, or who at these colleges ask me questions about, what can I do? I'm in the throes of this eating disorder. How can I see you guys, right? I understand in a deep, deep way the way that our brains work with these eating disorders. And I just want you to know that recovery is possible. I just want you to believe in yourself and believe in your potential, and know that you have so much more potential than this fucking eating disorder. This eating disorder is doing nothing but sabotaging your potential. And I want to speak directly for a moment to, if you guys are struggling and you feel really lonely in the struggle, maybe it's amazing if you have a great support system, but maybe you don't. Not everybody's lucky enough to have a great support system. Maybe you're bullied in school. Maybe your family's abusive, or just deeply dysfunctional, or just not there for you. Maybe you just feel different than everybody in your family. I want you guys to know that you do not need, this gleaming, smiling support system to get through it. All you need is yourself. That's all. I am thinking of you all a lot. I wish you guys the best. Bye. If you want more hard feelings, you're in luck. You've got options. On Apple Podcasts, there's bonus content for subscribers with Lemonada Premium. You can hear me answer exclusive questions from listeners. On Spotify, you can talk to each other by leaving comments on each episode. And on Amazon Music, you can listen ad-free with a subscription to Amazon Prime. I'm Jennette McCurdy, the creator, executive producer, and host of Hard Feelings. It's produced by Lemonada Media in coordination with Happy Rage Productions. Our production team is Keegan Zema, Aria Bracci, and Brian Castillo. Music is by Hannes Brown. Steve Nelson is Lemonada's Vice President of Weekly Content. Rachel Neal is Lemonada's Senior Director of New Content. Executive producers are Stephanie Whittles-Wax, Jessica Cordova-Kramer, and me.